I'm just going to read something I wrote earlier initially. Um, my father is Sayed Ferjani. He's been languishing in a Tunisian prison for the last 35 days for the second time in his life under yet another Tunisian dictator. The first time I was 3 years old, I watched police storm our home and hold my dad down on the kitchen floor. This was 1987 under the Ben Ali regime. My father was severely tortured using methods that are illegal under international law. His back was broken and he was unable to walk. At times, his torture was so severe, he ended up in a coma for 5 days. Unfortunately, after all the gains, albeit imperfect, of the Tunisian revolution, at 68, my father is yet again paying the price for his commitment to human rights and his participation in democracy. We've known since 25th of July 2021 that my father will most likely be targeted in a crackdown. He was also named in the leaked document as part of a list of names to place on house arrest after Qais's coup. Leading up to his arrest, my father was followed by police everywhere he went, including to his brother's funeral in Qayrawan, where my father only learnt of his death after a day's interrogation. On Monday, the 20th of February, my father was summoned for questioning on the Instalingo conspiracy as a witness. Prior to this, since the coup, he was asked to come in a few times for questioning on various matters. On Monday, the 27th of February, my father was summoned again and interrogated. My parents' home was raided by police, yet despite finding no evidence, he was detained and a hearing was set in Sousse 2 days later on the 1st of March. The prosecution were convinced of my father's answers and we were hopeful that he would be let go. However, due to pressure from Qais Said, they issued a prison warrant without charge until they find evidence. In most countries, including the Tunisia before the coup, this is not lawful. My father is yet to be charged, no evidence has been found, and no hearing has been set. The judge during my father's case was unable to look my father in the eye while issuing his imprisonment. This has been a common ethical dilemma amongst the Tunisian judiciary since the crackdown began after Qais's coup, where judges are visibly nervous, embarrassed, and at times even crying when issuing out unlawful detentions. Some have resorted to taking sick leave in order to avoid issuing false imprisonments due to the ultimatum Qais gave the judiciary of either detaining those he wished imprisoned or be considered as co-conspirators. As my father told his lawyer, we have shifted from the independence of the judiciary to the use and abuse of the judiciary. My father immediately went on a nil-by-mouth hunger strike. For him, this was the only way he could protest the sham hearings he and his fellow political prisoners were subjected to. The conditions in which my father is being held are concerning. He was placed in an overcrowded cell with around 120 inmates, in a cell with a capacity of 60, and his health began to deteriorate. He was sent to the hospital a few times, where he once lost consciousness while doctors tried to retrieve his blood without uncuffing him. This was under police orders. My father recently stopped his hunger strike to prepare for Ramadan. We have recently heard that my father isn't told what time he can begin his fast or end it. At times, he's told one, but not the other, and he's not told his prayer times either. He's also sharing a cell with mentally ill and violent inmates that should not be in general population. One is self-harming, one was seen eating his flesh and even cutting flesh from his thigh and putting it in a sandwich, and one gouged the eye of another inmate. We also know they placed a camera in his cell. He's yet to be visited by any NGO to check on his prison conditions, though I have reached out. In my father's own words, the case against him is nothing but an attempt to whitewash and normalize the coup and take revenge against its opponents, and that it is based on accusations by individuals who have had their honesty and integrity severely called into question. My father has spent most of his life fighting dictatorship and oppression and advocating for human rights, whether in Tunisia or as a community activist during his 21 years of exile in the UK. As a democratically elected MP and prominent figure in Tunisian politics, my father has played an instrumental role in promoting democracy and human rights in Tunisia since 2011, after the Arab Spring. His imprisonment, along with other political prisoners, is a blatant attempt to suppress opposition voices and peaceful dissent. My father has always believed in democracy and the rule of law, in defending the rights of those who are oppressed, and sends a clear message. I'll speak loudly from inside and outside Tunisia with those who share with me the belief in the values of freedom, democracy, and human rights. I also want to mention that my family have been working with a barrister here in the UK and on behalf of prisoners and the family of the protester that was killed during an anti-coup protest, Rida Bouzien. We have called for sanctions. Right now it's starting in the UK, sanctions against Qais Said, an interior minister, well, two of the interior ministers, the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Defense. I also want to just reference something that Dr. Ellie said about the situation in Tunisia is not unique in the Arab world, but I would say it is a bit unique because Tunisia, what makes it uniquely tragic is that Tunisia has tasted freedoms and democracy in the last 10 years. This isn't simply a continuation of authoritarianism. This is going back to before, and that I think that is uniquely tragic, and I think that makes it very concerning, and we do need the international community to stop supporting Qais's actions. In particular, Italy and France have been very disappointing. In the case of Italy, they haven't just been supporting Qais, but they've been lobbying others to financially support his vision. And I would say they have probably been particularly upsetting, given the comments they've said with regards to Qais's crackdown. They seem to be supporting it. They seem to be enthusiastic of Ennahda's repression and using Islamophobic rhetoric in order to promote Qais's crackdown. I think another thing with regards to the international community, particularly Europe, and particularly France and Italy, and now even in the UK, the migrant crisis, so-called migrant crisis, and their anti-migrant policies are clearly informing their position when it comes to supporting Qais and his crackdown, especially his recent racist scapegoating of Black migrants. And I think that's rather unfortunate at the moment. So yeah, thank you.